This episode is sponsored by The Alcohol Experiment, a free 30-day challenge designed to interrupt your patterns, give you control, restore your health, and put you back in touch with the version of you who doesn't need alcohol to cope, relax, or enjoy life. More than 220,000 people have already tried The Alcohol Experiment for themselves and have seen improved sleep, increased happiness, reduced anxiety, and so much more. Join thousands in this inspiring, hopeful, and exciting program where you examine your beliefs and reconnect with the best version of you without ever feeling like you're missing out. Start today for free at alcoholexperiment.com.
Hey everybody, it's Scott Pinyard, head coach at This Naked Mind, and I am back with another episode of Coaching Questions with another fantastic Naked Mind coach. This is Lorna Wilson. How are you, Lorna?
I am just awesome. How are you, Scott?
I'm great, especially because I get to spend time with you today. Lorna,
Well,
so
thanks.
you specialize in working with people over 60 who want to change their drinking for sort of health and wellness reasons, not necessarily people who deem themselves an alcoholic. For those of you listening, I'm using quotation fingers, that need to change because maybe life is falling apart. And these people kind of have a hard time making that switch. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I've talked to a lot of people who are in that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts actually with my own story. So, I'm 65, and when I became a coach with This Naked Mind, that was the individuals that I was really the most passionate about, because I know what it's like to be feeling that you're starting to near retirement or whatever, and now you're looking at your life and your health and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what's happened? What's happened in the last number of years? So just looking at trying to talk to individuals and coach with them around this naked mind and the methodology. When I found it, it was life-changing, and I'm really excited to be doing this work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The idea of, which I noticed in kind of what you sent me about your niche, is the idea of not considering themselves an alcoholic, but still wanting to make that change.
For sure.
I feel like that's
Yeah.
an interesting distinction, because that term is something that a lot of people run away from, right? That label is something that is, I think, heavily stigmatized. So when people come to you and work with you, like how do they define themselves? Like, how do they tell you that they want to make this change?
No, it's really more about I think a curiosity. Like they've got the stigma of, okay, what is an alcoholic, and thinking that it's got to be someone that's really challenged with drinking and down and out and all that sort of thing, when they know that they're not. But what they do know is that they are waking up probably way too often during any given week and feeling really not that great. And so, the term alcoholic doesn't fit. I never felt that I was fully functioning. I had, a pretty high profile job within our city. I was well known. I was in the media often, but it was stressful. And, because of that, that's was my go-to, the wine witch around 5 o'clock was where I was at. But would I have said to anyone, and I today, I still don't identify that it was, alcoholic per se, but alcohol is addictive. And I learned a lot, when I started to read Annie's book and doing all the Google searches that everybody does.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that you said actually in the last answer is something that I think is really important to this process, and that is curiosity. Just this idea of, my life is one way right now. I'm curious about what would happen, right? I'm curious, not I have to change, not I must change, not someone forcing me to change, but I'm curious what would happen. And that element of curiosity is a big part of what we do at This Naked Mind, as you know, right? Like going into an alcohol experiment, we encourage people to really just be open, be curious about it. Don't go in with expectations. Where are some of the places, either in your own journey or with some of your clients, where you've seen that curiosity lead people?
Well, the exploration of just understanding what alcohol does to you. I remember reading in Annie's book about, alcohol is ethanol.
Mm,
And
yeah.
my dad was a sales rep for an oil company, and we used to spend our summers going from, gas station to gas station as he was doing his work, and we were supposedly having holidays. And I can remember the smell of ethanol. And the day I read that, it was just so eye-opening, going, oh my God. And I think how she talks about it in the book is, and we just dress it up into something that's fancy. So that curiosity and the learning of all of the things that alcohol was doing was what I'd been searching for a long time. I wanted to know the science behind it. I wanted to know, what is this doing to my body? Because I thought, once I've got that understood, I think I'm going to be able to just drop this and
Mhm.
move away from it. And I did an alcohol experiment. I did the intensive. I mean, it wasn't immediate, but
Yeah.
it was the curiosity that was moving me along. And with clients, that's what I see is the same thing. We're intelligent human beings. But all of a sudden there's these different things. The marketing of alcohol. We live in where I live in Western Canada, we're in a wine region. I mean,
Mm,
I'm surrounded right now today by 50 wineries, and
wow.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I used to work in arts and culture, and anyways, lots of wine, put it that way. And so, one understanding about just that, the fact that you're around it so much, and the marketing of it, and it was all based, that was that curiosity that drove me and got me to understand, in essence, what that substance, that ethanol, was actually doing to me. And it wasn't pretty.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's interesting because a big part of what we talk about that you sort of hit on is, I don't know, I guess I'll call them the sort of hidden truths of alcohol, right? The parts of this
Mhm.
that they're not hidden in the sense that no one knows them. They're hidden in the sense that we just don't talk about it. Right? Like we don't talk
Absolutely.
about the fact, like you'll never hear, well, not on at least an alcohol industry commercial, that alcohol is ethanol, right? You'll
Hmm.
never hear in an alcohol ad, hey, we are manipulating your emotions so that you think our product will do what you feel you need, right?
Hmm.
That for me was massive, yeah, in a similar way to what you were talking about. Like I remember reading the book and suddenly opening my eyes to, whoa, like look at these ads. I never really paid them
Hmm.
attention, right? I didn't,
Hmm.
especially like I remember there's one for some reason, I don't know why. I lived in New York for a number of years and there was a Subway ad. I think it was for Jose Cuervo. And I
Hmm.
remember the picture of it so clearly. I don't know why. But obviously, what that means is that I saw it multiple times, right? I would see it while I was
Hmm.
waiting for a train. I would see it while I was riding on a train through a station. And like, it made an imprint on me, and it was really sort
Hmm.
of implying the idea that like if you drink you won't be alone. Well, at the time I was very, very lonely, and
Hmm.
that was something that I used to use as a reason to go out, right? Well, I can't sit
Yeah.
here alone, I got to go to the bar, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, the
Yeah.
point I'm making though is it's the curiosity about these things of like maybe there's something different happening here,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
maybe the problem isn't you, Lorna. Maybe the problem
Hmm.
is the conversation. Maybe the problem is the
Oh,
substance. And that's fascinating.
absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And then coming to the place too of, it's not your fault,
Yes. Yeah.
that was huge. That was, again, a real shift in my thinking. And, wow, if you consume this over time, there's things will happen, and they were happening. And
Yes.
granted, it took me a number of years, but into my 50s, one glass of wine suddenly was 4 or 5,
Yep.
and wasn't wanting that.
Yeah. I hear you. I totally hear you. All right.
Hmm.
I could talk about this all day because I love the idea of
Yes,
curiosity, but I want to dive into some questions.
for sure.
So here is question number 1.
Hmm.
Hi, all. I have an issue that I'm sure isn't unique to me, but nevertheless, it's something that I'm having a hard time getting sorted. I am 32 days alcohol free, and I feel great with one major exception: my marriage. While my husband has said he supports me, he has not changed any of his drinking behavior. Most nights are okay, but on the weekends, he drinks more, and it's been tough for me. It's not so much that I'm worried about drinking myself. that's absolutely not what I want. But it's that I feel like there is a widening gap between us. Have you seen people how have you seen people handle this in the past?
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, big question, and often comes up, right, in marriages. I know it did certainly for me. And I think the first thing is, when is that we need to focus on ourselves, obviously. And really it's about that self-care and looking at the why you're doing it. And it really is about you and about getting healthy. And within the context of the relationship, I just found for myself that if I was spending time focused on me and focused on getting this out of my life, etc., I found that my drinking buddy, who was my husband, started to really become curious himself in,
Yes.
okay, what's going on with her? And things are a bit different. And were there times where I was annoyed? Absolutely. In the beginning, for sure.
Hmm.
But then I just started to, I decided to do a bit of a mind shift. And this is what I talk to clients about is, looking at him with love and looking at him for the person that he is. And he's an amazing guy. And if I just focused on all the great things that he does, then I was able to just sort of leave that behind. Scott, what happened eventually was down the road, alcohol became, a non-thing in my world. And suddenly it was a non-thing in his too. And one
Yes.
day I said to him, I said, I'd love it if you'd read the book just so you understood, what I was learning. And he said, sure. And there you go. Now he's not 100% alcohol free. He had a
Mhm.
couple glasses of wine at Christmas or whatever, but he's not my drinking buddy anymore. And so it can happen. Um, but you start with yourself,
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
Yeah.
And and first I want to say to this person who wrote in, like 32 days. I mean, this email's kind of
Big
old now,
time.
past that
Awesome.
now, but way to
Yeah,
go
that's
on that.
good. Yeah.
Um, yes, this is something I see all the time in my programs. And it's interesting to hear you tell that story about your husband, Lorna, because I have multiple stories like that from our programs where someone starts a program and they're saying, hey, like, I don't know what to do about this. Like I had one lady who I gave a tactic to, which I'm going to give in a second. Eventually, like at one point in the program, was like things are going like totally off the rails. I don't know what I'm going to do. To at the end, her husband actually joined us on one of the calls to actually
Oh,
talk about
cool.
some stuff. So one thing that I find very often with people who are going through this process is that when we kind of move through the alcohol use disorder spectrum, one of the things that happens is alcohol starts becoming the answer for a lot of different things. And so
Mhm.
maybe it's stress. I know for me it was loneliness, it was anger, it was absolutely stress, it was anxiety, it was, as that list continues to grow, what happens is we start to lose the ability to say, hey, this is what I actually need.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember saying before, and saying this today sounds so crazy to me, but I remember saying before, I'm really tired, I need a drink. And it's like, no, dude, you need a nap, right? Like that's how our brains start to think over time. And the reason that I'm
Mhm.
saying this is one thing that I've found to be extremely powerful and very helpful in this situation is getting clear with yourself on what sort of
Yeah.
support do you need from your
Yeah.
partner, you know?
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. For
Mhm.
me, I didn't ask my wife to do anything, actually. She doesn't really
Mhm.
drink that much anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a problem. But I have worked with a lot of people who have spouses that were, like you said, like drinking buddies.
Mhm.
And so the process that I normally give them to work through this is first to get very clear to yourself, right? What is
Mhm.
it that I need from them? What sort of
Yeah.
support do I need?
Yeah.
And to be able to, first of all, identify that, and then secondly, have a conversation with them, that
Mhm.
is a massive growth step. Because in that process, what you're doing is you're doing something that maybe you haven't done much at all, if at all, over the last few years that you've been drinking, which is saying, this is what I need, and this is what I'm going to ask for. So just doing that in and of itself is a big step forward.
Yeah.
Um, So first, define what it is that you need. Secondly, have that conversation, not from a place of blame and shame or guilt that you're changing them, but just very clearly and openly as your partner, in the same way that you might say, I don't know, I'm feeling sick today, I need to take the day off of work. You can say, hey, partner, I don't know if, whatever. Hey, partner, like I need this, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe it's they don't drink in the
Yeah.
house. Maybe it's they only drink on Tuesdays. Maybe it's you've got a date night a week, whatever that looks like. So once you have that conversation, you can see what their response is. And sometimes the response is like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm on board. Other times it's not so great, right? Other times it might not be so supportive. And in that case, being able to say, hey, I'm going to, like, that's fine. You want to drink while watching football on Thursday nights? That's totally cool. Thursday nights, I'm going to hang out in my room. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to go for a drive, whatever that comes up. And so that process of identifying, speaking to, and then meeting your own needs is going to help you so much in your journey. But then the other thing that happens at the same time is you start to kind of plant those seeds of questioning in your partner's mind.
Absolutely.
And again, like I don't encourage people to like force others to change, but by saying that, it starts this conversation that keeps going.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I had similar experience too of just, having that conversation, and I remember one time in particular and saying, it just, as I'm going through this and as I'm learning all of these things, like watching you have 3 or 4 glasses of wine in a night is a challenge. So
Yeah.
how are we going to work through this? And we worked it out, similar to what you were just describing. And that was a real turning point for us too, and made me love him even more. It really did. So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
mean, and I love that you bring that up because the biggest fear I hear with this is my relationship is going to get destroyed. And that, as humans, we tend to a lot of times sort of see potential or see like the future is a little bit more negative than it necessarily is. But what I see from my desk of people who go through this process, thousands of people who've gone through this, more often, the vast majority of the time, it ends with more closeness, not less.
Yeah.
Is it scary? Yes, it can be. Do you feel worried about how that person is going to respond? Of course. But, what I see over and over and over, and you're right, it takes time, but over and over and over, it tends to bring people together and not push them apart.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on yourself and just, do the work, and, the results could be really surprising all the way around. So
I love it. Perfect. All
yeah.
right, let's go on to question number 2. Question number 2 is this: one thing I can't seem to shake is guilt and shame about the things I've done while intoxicated. While I don't feel comfortable sharing the details in an email, suffice it to say that there are really 3 instances, one thing I said and 2 things I did, that have me stuck. I can't seem to let go of the guilt and shame for my behavior. How do I move past this?
Well, guilt and shame, those are just they're so challenging to deal with, and certainly getting past them is really important, and looking at yourself from the standpoint of love and self-love is certainly a start. But those memories, of the shame, etc., is really difficult to overcome, but you need to. And shining a light on what that shame is, what it is that happened. I don't know if there's a way of with rectifying it, or being a little bit more open and honest about it in time. I had experiences like that myself, where I had embarrassed myself, I had said some things and done some things, and eventually got to a place where I was able to apologize and move past it. Sometimes you can't do that. You know, where we are right now is, now we're on a journey that's healthy. And what can we do moving forward? How are we going to be in the future? And focusing in on that. That's yeah. So I don't know if that's similar to the way you would respond to this, Scott, but
Yeah, no, it
yeah,
absolutely is. This is another thing, just like the spouse or partner thing that comes up all the time.
yeah, it does.
I don't know how to square this circle. And I hope this isn't too broad, but I feel like pretty much everybody who goes through this process of becoming alcohol free can think of at least one instance. It doesn't need to be like, car crash serious, but I bet people can think of at least one instance when they're like, I wish I hadn't done that. Right now, those are going to come in sort of different levels of intensity. Like some people, it's going to be really, really intense, and other people, maybe it's just like, oops, and they can kind of let it go. What I find the guilt and shame, well, there's a few things that I find to be very effective in trying to work through the guilt and shame of anything that we may have done. The first thing is a bit of a mindset shift, of a reframing of this idea of, aren't I a horrible person because I did this thing? There's a really interesting fact, and anyone who's in our programs has definitely heard me say this over and over, and I do call it a fact because I cannot think of a single instance in which this isn't actually true. But no one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to ruin my life.
Yeah.
Right? No one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to do the worst job that I could possibly do, whether it's at work or whether it's as a parent or a community member or a partner, whatever it is, right? My point is that we all go through our journey, the way we say it, doing the best we can with the tools that we have at the time. And that sounds like, oh, wait, are you just letting me off the hook? No, not necessarily, but it's about context, right? So this one thing that you said and two things that you did, right? Those things happened in context of a bunch of other things, right? And so being able to say, wait a minute, yes, I feel guilty about this. Yeah, I was drinking, right? What is the context there? What was your motivation? And I promise you, it wasn't like, I am going to go hurt somebody today, right? I am going to go ruin a relationship today. It's almost always with something else going on. So that's the first thing, is to really check in with yourself and see if that's true. I bet it is, that you have never woken up and said, I'm going to mess things up today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you can accept that, moving to the second phase of this is recognizing what were the tools that you had and how did they fail you, right? So I know for me, stress, anxiety, anger, those were things I've already mentioned that I used alcohol to try to control. That doesn't work so well, right? But that was the tool I had. I didn't know how else to control that. I wasn't aware of what else I could do. So when you can put your own story in this context, it's immensely helpful. It's not necessarily going to completely relieve shame and guilt, but it's going to reframe it in a way that makes it easier for you to continue on your path. And like you said, Lorna, be able to reach, if it's someone you can reach out to and be like, hey, oops. Or if it's someone that you can, if it's a situation, whatever it is, but no matter what it is, and this is, I guess, the last point I'll make, you're stuck with it. It's not going to change. So the question is, if that situation isn't going to change, what are you going to do to change your mindset and the way you view it so that you can move forward?
Absolutely. And changing your mindset too. I just need to say that, being careful a bit about constantly beating yourself up over things can also keep you stuck. You can just stay in that whirlwind of that thinking, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person. And watch it, because are you doing that maybe a bit on purpose too, so that you don't have to move forward, or you're not allowing yourself to move forward. So it's yeah, moving past it is really, really a key, and loving yourself and honoring what you're doing right now for the betterment of who you want to be in the future is where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, and there's something that I did a whole presentation. Maybe I'll use this as a tease. I did a whole presentation on why guilt is selfish, which everyone's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
A couple of
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago
yeah.
at this Naked Mind Live, and
That's
one of
maybe
the
where I
things,
heard it.
yeah, well, one of the things that I think you touched on there is really, really important. Is that like
Yeah.
the guilt that you're feeling is somehow serving a purpose for you.
Yes.
And being able to understand if that is moving you in a healthy direction or an unhealthy direction, however you define that, is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to say, wait a minute, I'm just sitting here beating the hell out of myself for no
Mhm.
reason, or
Yeah.
because I want to feel bad because I think that there's some cosmic scale to balance here.
Mhm.
Once you can understand what's behind that guilt and shame, I think very often it's easy to kind of move forward. But it is really also very easy to just get stuck in this pool
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
guilt and shame.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's do one more. This is awesome, Lorna. Let me see. I will let you choose. Do you want to do a question about being alcohol free? Sorry, do you want to do a question about uh, wanting to change after being alcohol free? Or do you want to do a question about trying to quit drinking when you're 74 years old?
Oh, wow. Both are good.
I know
Um,
they are.
well, let's do the 74-year-old question. What
Awesome.
what
All
does
right,
that person have to say?
let me read that one to you. So here it goes. Hello. This one may be an unusual email for you. I am 74 years old and working to finally, in parentheses, change my relationship with alcohol, as you say. Is it really worth it? I feel like this journey may be a tough one. I have many years of drinking experience under my belt. Have you seen people my age change? Does it actually happen?
Oh, wow. Yes, it does. For sure. I think there's a lot of there's so much wisdom that we have, right? I'm 65, and you get to a place where you've seen a lot, done a lot. You know what you value, you know what you care about, you know what you love, and so when you make the decision that you want to make some changes, it's all about the whys, right? It's no different than whether you're in your 20s, but what
Yeah,
is the why? What are you doing with your kids these days, if you've got children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren?
right.
What will life be like, in the future? And I coached with a woman recently who was in her mid 70s, and she got to a point where she was filling out her year-long plan of all the things she wanted to do,
I love it.
because alcohol had been holding her back. She had been stuck in a certain way of thinking for so long, but realized once she put it behind her that there was a big world out there and lots of traveling to do and things to do with a completely different mindset. So
I
it's highly possible.
That's so cool. I have
Mhm.
we've worked with a lot of people who have actually had the same question too, and
Mhm.
I love the idea of going back to the whys,
Mhm.
because the whys are the thing, no matter where we're on our journey, that start to drive us. And being
Mhm.
able to say, for a lot of people, being 74 is a time in your life when there's a lot of opportunity. And
Mhm.
so you mentioned family, that's absolutely part of it. Traveling is part of it. Like there's so many
Mhm.
things at that
Mhm.
age that are available to you. And being able to
Absolutely.
understand that and define that in a way that is motivating to you, I think is really, really awesome. And
Mhm.
to be direct about it. Does it actually happen? Yes, it does. And we
Yes.
see it happen all the time. I think it's really interesting if you really kind of unpack this question a little bit. I wish so many times, Lorna, I wish these people were on this podcast.
The call with
I
you.
could ask them questions.
Yeah.
But there's almost a sense of kind of discounting, their own, the remaining
I'm too old.
they have here. And that is so sad to me, because I know that, people are valuable. And I know that they don't look back on the rest of their life and say, was that whole thing a waste? And I think reframing this to say, instead of to say, man, is it too late? Like, I'm just old now. Instead to say, hey, I got some time left and it's going to be friggin' fantastic, is really, really important.
Well, also the learning too. It's like I said earlier about, learning about ethanol, learning about alcohol. It was as I was in my 60s, and I'd worked in, wine industry and all sorts of things, and I had no idea. And so if you think about, what you learn about, about your brain, and what you learn about alcohol itself and the brain, all of that through this methodology, no matter what age you are, it can really work to get you to change how you're thinking and how you're reacting, and the fact that you can put alcohol behind you. And now what's that going to open up for you, right? Health-wise, physically, all sorts of things. It's just amazing. And like I say, age should not be any barrier here at all.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. All right, we got to wrap up, but I do have one more question for you. I didn't prep you for this one. So this is a curveball question, Lorna. I ask everybody this at the end of their podcast. Well, not this specific question, but here is yours. Are you ready?
Okay.
So your question is, what did you want to be when you were a kid, and why?
Oh my goodness, what did I want to be when I was a kid? Well, I don't know. Grade 2, Miss Unruh, I wanted to be a teacher. And it's just because I loved her so much. And we lived in a prairie school, a prairie area in central Canada. And she was just amazing to me. There wasn't a thing that this woman could do wrong. So yeah, teacher.
I love that answer. That's so good.
Never did it.
We kind of do. I mean, that's what we're doing here. I'm sure I know you educate your clients. So totally in a way, I think maybe you do a bit.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out.
Yeah,
with
thanks.
Me
this is awesome.
If people want to find out a little bit more about you, what is your website, Lorna? Where can they go to connect?
My website is at lornawilsoncoaching.com.
I love it. Thank you.
Very simple. Yeah.
And thank you to all of you listening out there. My name is Scott. I am the head coach of This Naked Mind. I will be back next month with another episode of Coaching Questions. Until then, see you later.
Thanks.
Are you ready for a deep dive and truly lasting change? If so, you might consider my intensive program. It's a 9-week self-led program that you can do in the complete comfort of your own home, and it will truly transform your relationship with alcohol. If you want to learn more about this, go to thisnakedmind.com/intensive. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.